Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice. Everybody, Chad Madden here with the Grow Your Practice podcast, and today we welcome back Dr. Kevin Christie. Welcome back to the pod here. Kevin, how you doing?
Pleasure. I'm doing good, man. Just it's summer here down in South Florida, a little quieter, a little hotter, but everything's good.
Great. So just to catch everybody up, if they didn't catch your first episode a year or two ago, you're a chiropractic doctor, you're a practice owner, you're also running a huge mastermind in the chiropractic community. Can you introduce yourself to everybody here if they're not familiar with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 20 years a chiropractor and about 8 years working with chiropractors on, kind of started out on the content marketing side, and then it's morphed into many different things. And so now we do a lot with just helping chiropractors grow.
Nice. So let's talk about that. You have a group that you graciously invited me into,
Yep.
Modern Chiropractic Marketing, MCM, as many of them, or as many people refer to it. You have an Eastern U.S. group and also a Western U.S. group. Can you talk about, how your own practice has changed as you've gone through that journey working with other private practices?
Yeah, it's what I think is what's fun about when you have your own practice, as you know, and then you help other chiropractors. A lot of times you use your own practice as a test lab for ideas, see if they work or not. Then you can kind of go back and help other chiropractors on maybe those do, or maybe it would work in this type of situation and not in this type of situation. And so that's been really good. And then, yeah, I use the mastermind to help obviously a lot of chiropractors out with that, but I get a lot of good ideas and then bring it back to my practice. So it kind of feeds itself, which has been a nice little ecosystem for sure.
Cool. So I know you and I have talked a lot about content marketing.
Mhm.
I know, and when we spent some time together in San Antonio over dinner, and also the next day at your mastermind, we focused on that. Can you talk a little bit about what has changed, what you've seen evolve, from the rise of TikTok? And I don't hear anybody talking about TikTok anymore,
Yeah.
but basically creation of video, how you're using that in your marketing, and how, if a practice owner is listening to this and they're not doing content marketing, how
Mhm.
they can think about bringing value to the table for potential patients.
Yeah, and let's make a little differentiation too while we're at it. But content marketing was defined by Joe Polizzi out of the Content Marketing Institute, and it is a form of marketing. And then sometimes you have someone that might be like a content producer, and you don't necessarily think they're marketing, right? Like let's say like a Tim Ferriss on his podcast. Obviously he wouldn't consider himself a marketer, but he produces really good content and kind of stays above the fray and really separates himself as a thought leader. And then from there, he's able to wrap a business around that, whether that's a business of, writing a book and getting that to be purchased by a zillion people because of who he is, or it's ads, right? Or it's just a bunch, he could do a bunch of different things, and you see that happen. And so sometimes it doesn't have to come in the form of marketing like you feel like you're being marketed to, because then sometimes you see people that are strictly producing content to sell you something, and you kind of get that feel as well, right? Does that make sense, Chad?
Absolutely. So, I mean, what I understand, for Tim Ferriss for the last 12 years, 13 years,
Yeah.
buying all his books, reading everything, is
Yeah.
he's thinking about how can I be valuable first?
Yes.
And I mean, if you go through, just how he thinks through the titles, the 4 Hour Work Week, and you study that process, and then he shares that process with everybody, the world, there are millions of people that have benefited without ever monetizing Tim Ferriss in any way,
Yeah.
paying him in any way at all. But you're like, oh, this is like a friend.
Yes.
Right. Right. Like this guy really wants to help me out. And then you have
Yeah.
other people where they're just punching you in the face with marketing and positioning and really hard selling. Um,
Yeah.
Typically follows that as well. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. And some would say, they're they're more sizzle than they are steak, right? That person is just you could tell they're just trying to sell you something. Or if you're in Texas, they'll call you was it all hat no cattle or all hat no cowboy. Um, and I think I want, and doctors, whether it's chiropractors, physical therapists, anybody that's got a really robust knowledge, like a Tim Ferriss. He's not a doctor, but he's got the substance. And so just naturally as a physical therapist or a chiropractor, you know a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't know and need to know. And so you just inherently have really good knowledge. And so you have the steak or you have the cowboy, you're not just going to be all sizzle. And so I think we start out of the gates with a head start in this whole thing. And then that's part of it. And then the second part of it is that for the most part, if you're a practicing doctor, you're trying to build a community. You're not trying to be Tim Ferriss International. You're just trying to really be really a leading educator in your community so that you get people to come to your practice. So if they think of you as the expert in X, Y, and Z, and then they have X happen to themselves, they're going to come service your practice, and because they're going to think of you as an educator, not as a marketer. And I think that's the biggest thing I want people to understand with content marketing when it's really done right is a form of invisible marketing.
Yeah, love that. And I really like the invisible marketing as well. And if I think back to the most successful thing, because I probably have been guilty of doing both,
Mhm.
Kevin, I think is we all have.
Same.
But I remember when I really first started diving into content marketing, thinking just if I answer patient questions, I'm going to be way ahead of the game. And we had a lot of tools that have evolved over time to help us do that. But yeah, completely agree with you, and it's extremely powerful when done the right way. The next question that I have for you is, and I know when I was talking with your group, you really get into evidence-based chiropractic and evidence-based marketing as well. Can you share just a glimpse of what exactly that is, any discerning points there, and then, how a somebody who, high quality clinician, pride themselves on high quality of care, how they can start to think about creating content and get the word out for their practice and attracting the right patient.
Yeah, there's actually something in our profession called clinical compass, and they do a lot of research and really good for the profession. And they have a definition of what evidence-based means as a chiropractor. Sometimes people are using the word evidence-informed, but I like how evidence-based kind of sums up three facets to it. One is definitely what's the current research on what the manipulation does for certain conditions or soft tissue work or exercise, things like that. Like what's the evidence showing? And the second part is like, what is some of your clinical experience with that and some of the results you've seen? And then third, the kind of the patient values, right? And we talk a lot of times about being patient centered, making decisions that are going to help that patient in their outcomes. Too many times doctors are doctor centered where they're prescribing certain things because they got to meet payroll. I'm okay. I love making money. I think doctors need to do well. I think doctors function better when they're doing well and they've got margin, because if you could take that evidence-based chiropractor, and if they're really struggling financially, then they may start making decisions that are based on the wallet, not on the patient. And so I want doctors to have a really good business and have good profit margins so that they can make patient-centered decision making. And then, yeah, there's nothing wrong with making money as well. And so that's the evidence-based, what an evidence-based chiropractor would be. And then we match up marketing that is congruent with that. And again, that's things that are going to be credibility enhancing to that doctor versus credibility detracting, right? Like there's a lot of marketing tactics and strategies out there that may be fine for like the used car salesman or someone peddling something, But really, should a doctor be doing that? I would say probably not in a lot of cases. And then, like, obviously, there's a lot of things we can't do marketing wise legally. A lot of it's state dependent. So I'm not going to dive into that whole thing, but you do have to know what that looks like as well. And so we are held to a higher standard. And so I think the level of marketing that you need to be doing needs to match up to that level of standard.
Great. So I'm listening to this. I want to do content marketing. I'm following
Yeah.
what you're saying. I think most of us have that, you know, that ethical, we don't want to appear salesy, right? We want to be a friend, and most of us are, as clinicians, very relationship oriented. Um, I, I'll, I want to share this one thing that when we
Yep.
started marketing, our practice, regardless of how straightforward we were and how ethical and not even asking for, anybody to buy anything or anything like that. The one thing that I got attacked with fairly early on is that we were over the top.
Mhm.
And this is like a 3-minute informational video
Yeah.
on simple exercises or things you can do for natural treatment for back pain. And it really, that was part of our market. And we went through the same thing with evidence-based physical therapy and
Mhm.
huge parallels there. Can you talk about that as well, like how you help people in your group or how you help other practices balance? How do I think about better business math
Mhm.
versus the relationships that I have with patients and also my team? And how do I think about balancing that? Because if we're all relationships, we're out of business, right? Because we have no margin of safety. If we're only playing good business math, we come up as pretty repulsive in the end as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'll start from the marketing side because you mentioned not coming off too salesy. Someone I enjoyed having on my podcast maybe 4 years ago, Kim Walsh Phillips. She co-authored a book with Dan Kennedy around social media. I guess probably the no BS line of books. And she has a saying is that your content marketing should be 85% PBS and 15% QVC, which just means like PBS is going to be free and public information, like help useful information, and QVC is going to be selling and promoting. And she has a good point to that. It's like if you're 80, and it doesn't have to be exactly 85%, but you get the point. If you're the vast majority very useful and helpful and trustworthy and all that, then you can sprinkle in some sales or call to action and things like that. And I think it's the same thing in your practice. Like if you are just very helpful and you communicate clearly with your patient and you're trustworthy and you have their best intentions in mind and all that, and you really provide a lot of value when you do go to sit down in front of them and obviously go over a treatment plan with them, and maybe there's some things that the insurance doesn't cover, or maybe you're not an insurance-based practice or whatever, but you're recommending to them that this is going to help their outcomes, and you're able to bridge that gap for them on why that's going to help their outcomes. They're going to trust you and they're not going to feel sold to. They're just going to say, yeah, like this is what I think is going to be your best care plan. We're going to be able to do this in X amount of visits, and this is what insurance covers, this is what it doesn't. You're just clear with that. I don't feel like they're going to be feeling like they're leaving that sold. They're leaving that with an opportunity to get better. If they take it, if they don't take it, that's fine. Maybe it's not in their finances, that's fine, but they're not going to feel like you're the problem in that scenario.
Yeah, love that. The key word you said in there was trust.
Yeah.
I heard that, and I think that's very key between the clinician, the provider, and the patient as well. The and I mean the way that I've always heard it defined is like I don't want to convince somebody to
Yeah.
do something that they don't have to do or they don't want to do. And I think what you're saying, like here, I'm going to prescribe a plan of care. I'm going to present a plan of care to you. This is my recommendation. And then ultimately that person has the decision, and we're not going to guilt trip them or
Yeah.
like play with their emotions if they don't make the decision that maybe might benefit our practice or whatever it might be, right? So, how do you help? So, a clinician, and I know we've seen there's a bell curve here, right? We have
Yeah.
some clinicians that are selling 100% cash based,
Mhm.
and they're asking a high dollar ticket item. Maybe it's a 5,000 or 10,000,
Mhm.
$15,000 package. And then we have other practices that are insurance accepting and they're not selling anything in addition. How do you how do you help them navigate that and
Yeah.
decide like where they should be? Where's the sweet spot for them to be authentic as a provider?
Yeah, obviously it's a continuum. And one of the conversations I'll have, and I think it pertains to the conversation, so I'll dive into it is, like let's take on the one end of the spectrum, you mentioned selling a high ticket, maybe it's a long care plan, it's a lot, or you just, I'm worth $400 a session and you need to come in 20 times and you do the math and it's $5,000, whatever the math would be. Um, One of the things that you have to understand is, have you positioned yourself appropriately in that community to be able to command that, right? It's like if I wanted to have Gary Vaynerchuk come and speak to an event, like I know that's not going to be $2,000, right? Like I know that's probably a six-figure thing now, and he's done enough to position himself for enough people, and it doesn't have to be a lot, right? But enough people to want to come speak to that event. And so, have you done enough to position yourself as the expert in the community to compel enough people to come in? And when they see what it costs, or they know what it is because their friend referred them, it's like, hey, Dr. Christie's really good, but just know it's not cheap. It's going to be, but they see the value, right? And if you haven't positioned yourself enough, you have not done that enough in the eyes of the beholder and community to position yourself, that value turns into too expensive. And if too many people think it's too expensive, you're not going to get enough sales on that, right? And a lot of people will say, well, it's like, um, you know, I, I've got, more hourly rate. Like my hourly rate's higher. But yeah, but if you're not seeing enough people, it doesn't matter how much you get. If you got one person paying you $5,000 in a month, there's not enough money to run a business, right? Now, on the other side of the spectrum, if you're insurance based, it gives you a lot more leeway to get people in if you haven't positioned yourself fully as that expert yet. Now, the holy grail is if you position yourself as an expert and you're in network with some insurances, or you take some of the good ones, or you're in network with insurances and you have some add-on things like Shockwave or Laser or whatever, and people do buy that because they trust you and they know that you're an authority, then that's really good too. Or lastly, I had a guy on my podcast a couple years ago. He charges $500 a session. He does a lot of rehab-based chiropractic, but it was a slow bake to get there, right? Like he just kept on building up his expertise over time, and he kept on adding and adding and adding as far as his rate. And now he's there, and he fills his schedule with that, and it worked out well, but it didn't happen overnight. And so I think people have to understand that it's a process. And the more you do a good job of positioning yourself as an expert, the more things you can do to avoid being commoditized. And I think that's very important to understand.
Yeah, love that. Uh, the other, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here just to make sure we have this right. But the more marketing effort we have, it seems to alleviate some of the sales tactics or sales pressure on the end. If we've done our job, like, by the way, Love Kim was at a mastermind event with her in Nashville a few years ago, but love
She's
the
dynamic.
85, yeah, 85% PBS, 15% QVC. Great one. But if we've done our job up here and we've spent enough time where somebody knows, likes, and trusts us now, then when it comes time to make that decision or help them make that decision, give our recommendation, we're not going to feel, and they're going to sense that, right? The person's going to sense it like, oh, you have my best interest in mind, and we don't have to do that super hard
Yeah.
pressure sales.
And exactly. And it's beautiful. Like when you get good results and you're a good doctor and you get referrals, which is awesome. So people are usually, when they are referred into your practice by a friend or family or someone they trust, they automatically, I don't say automatically, but they trust you, and they're compelled. But if you layer on really good content marketing that educates people and shows what you know and you're helpful to people, that will then move the needle. It's kind of like Seth Godin's XY axis of positioning. And it's like you want to be up in that upper right quadrant. That's where you're high expert, and in a particular niche. And so now you've done a good job of positioning. And so people will come in and they'll be compelled to accept what you're offering them without it having to become this huge like sales job that's like hard sales tactics, that's when we run into a lot of struggles.
Yeah, great. One quick observation that I've had in the marketplace right now that I want to get your opinion on is I've heard a lot of people talking about scripts, like the memorization of what to say. Like it's basically didactic information or declarative statements that somehow convince the person to take the action that we're recommending. The other option that seems to be working well is questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Questions. We focus on the patient. Um, what kind of pain are you having? Tell me what's going on. What's your pain stopping you from doing? That type of those calibrated questions, how or what questions, at least from what I've seen, are working out better. Are you seeing the same thing in the marketplace, or are we still focused on scripts in some cases, or how do you think about that in terms of helping with conversion?
Well, I don't recommend or teach scripts. Some people can do it and do pretty well with it. I teach more of a framework, and it's just three easy aspects to it. You'd want to have a hook, and let's just say it's the desk worker with headaches is like you're going to do a video that's going to talk to that person, and it kind of comes with the Donald Miller story brand stuff, right? Where too many times the doctor makes themselves the hero or their technique the hero or their practice the hero, and you really want to talk to the person and really dissect their problem. So like let's say that person has headaches, and that would be maybe the external conflict, as Donald Miller would talk about. But the lack of concentration and performance at work would be the internal conflict, and not wanting to take pain medications or whatever would be the philosophical conflict, right? So let's just say that's the scenario you're setting up for this video, and then and I'm gonna actually role play that for you here in a second. But so that would be kind of how you would outline your hook, and then I would have the give in the middle, which is okay. This video is going to actually be showing proper ergonomics to reduce the strain on your neck and head for headaches. So that would be actually like the value that I'm going to give them. And then my call to action at the end would just be something like I would, for me, I pride ourselves that we evaluate and treat patients on the same day. And so I might have something like, if you want your headaches evaluated and treated on the same day, call our office at blah, 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 visit our website. Like that would be my simple call to action is like, because a lot of people are tired of the rigmarole of healthcare where it's like, I don't want to go down, like, I don't want to deal with this because I know I'm going to go to my primary care doctor and he's going to refer me to a neurologist. That appointment is going to be 3 weeks from now. Like, there's going to be no solution and it's just a waste of my time versus like, oh, I can go there and get evaluated and treated on the same day. It would be, I think, as an example. There could be many different types of call to action, but that would be the example, right? And so now let's go to the hook. Are you a desk worker dealing with headaches, or maybe it's migraines and you're not too sure and you're losing focus and concentration at work and it's really hindering your ability to do your job and you don't want to miss work, you can't miss work, and you honestly don't want to take any pain medications? In this video, I'm going to show you how we can do some desk ergonomics and desk fitting that could take the strain away from your headaches, right? Boom. Now I would go into my give, which would be that, or the give could be, I'm going to show how I evaluate and treat headaches, or I'm going to talk about the difference between headaches and migraines, or I'm going to show them some stretches they can do, right? There's a lot of things I could potentially do in that. And I can make that a 3 or 4 minute video and put that out. Now I could take desk worker the whole month. I could do all kinds of different. I could talk about carpal tunnel. I could do a series of things for the desk worker with headaches. And again, video 1 could be me talking the difference between headaches and migraines. Video 2 could be ergonomics. Video 3 could be stretches. Video 4 could be how I evaluate and treat it. Right? And so I really like that kind of a format of it is like, who's your niche audience, and make the video compelling. You got to get compelling early on because they're going to get rid of you soon. You got like 7 seconds to get that figured out, right? And so I like that. And then to your point on the Q&A, I love that as well. A lot of times patients ask great questions and I'll jot down those questions, and those could be great videos. You obviously wouldn't mention the patient's name. You say, hey, we had this patient the other day was asking about the difference between headaches and migraines, and this is what we talked about. So yeah, I love that idea too.
Yeah, nice. Can we step back? So
Mhm.
the formula that I got is hook, then your
The
promise or
give.
your value. Yep.
Yeah.
Is number 2, and then 3 is the call to action.
Yep. Mhm. Nice and
Very
simple.
simple formula. Anybody could do that.
Yeah, and you already know the information. Like you might have to work on the hook a minute. Like, okay, let me get that clear. Um, but the you know if
Define hook for people that aren't familiar with that term.
yeah, just like the hook, like because people are so like they have attention span of a gnat nowadays, right? And so if I let me give you an alternative of a non-hook. Hi, I'm Dr. Kevin Christie, your Boca Raton chiropractor, and I am certified in active release technique, and I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. In this video, I'm going to show you why I'm so great, right? That's a lot of times what people are doing, and they're already turned off. But if they heard right away, are you a desk worker with headaches or migraines? They're like, yeah, that's me. They're going to potentially listen longer. So you're hooking them into watching the rest of the video.
Love it. Great. So, yeah, that promise value, you talked about that, how to deliver that, then a very basic, simple call to action where, again, you're not hitting them over the head to buy a $2,500 package or whatever it is, but
No.
they can
Mhm.
step forward and learn more.
Yep.
Um, the other thing that you mentioned, Kevin, is you said put that out. So
Yeah.
as practice owners, we're overwhelmed with
Mhm.
marketing options, right? Should we be thinking about cold traffic marketing and advertising on TikTok or whatever the latest thing is? Many of us have lists, and I know you're crushing it with reactivation. And then there's a whole bunch of things in the middle around
Yeah.
word of mouth referrals or professional referrals or partner,
Mhm.
events, somebody else promoting us. How do we think through where do we start? Where should the average practice owner start in promoting their practice with that 3-minute video that they just put
Yeah.
together?
If the question is where do they start? I think the easiest, and we know this is like it's easier to keep a patient than to get a new patient, or it's easier to keep a customer than get a new customer. We all know that type of stuff, and that's where what's interesting about as a chiropractor, you have a pretty robust patient list if you've been practicing for a little bit. So I would definitely start. I wouldn't just end here, but if I had to get going, I would get content to my current and past patients, right? And again, use Dan Kennedy. One of his analogies too is putting a fence around your cattle, which I always love, and I love that image. I found good images I've used on PowerPoints with that. And what he just means is like put content around your patient base or your community, right? And make sure you stay top of mind. And so I would do that. And email is like one of the best. And as far as getting content to there, text messaging is good. We do a lot of text message reactivation campaigns. It's hard to do it to where you're actually giving them content. I wouldn't say that's a content marketing play, but it is a reactivation play. So you're not going to get the video through text, but the video definitely could be put on there. And then nowadays with AI, I mean, we could have a whole episode on AI and content marketing. And do you mind if I speak to that just for a second?
Please do. Yep.
Yeah,
I'm just coming off a webinar for AI. So yeah,
yeah.
very relevant.
Because I think the big thing is it's not going on to ChatGPT or Grok or you pick your AI and saying write me a blog on headaches. It could do that. That's fine. But what you could do is take the video you shot. So like I like human plus AI is I think where the magic is, right? And so what I do is I'll take the video that we shot and I'll run that through something like Descript, and that'll give me the transcript of the video. And then I can put that transcript into ChatGPT and say, write me a 500 word email blog based on this video and compel them to watch the video that's in the email, right? And so now it'll spit out, you got to run it through Grammarly or whatever. Now it'll spit out some written copy that you would put in the body of the email to compel them to watch the video that you embedded into the email, right? And so now I took that video I did and I did that really quick step. And now it goes emails out to your 4,000, email list of your patients. And now they're seeing it, really good content. And it's amazing. I think it's a really good way. And it actually drives new patients as well, because I think about it this way, right? So if I stay top of mind with Mary through email and she sees that I treat headaches and migraines, and then her husband's been complaining of headaches and he's never been in my practice before, there's a good chance that you're now educating your sales force essentially, right? So your patient base is your sales force. And if you had a sales force, you would educate them on all the latest and things you do and your products and services. And your past patient base is your sales force. And now you're continually educating them and training them on the things you do and treat. And so now there's a higher likelihood she's going to refer her husband in to your patient and to your practice. And now you got a new patient out of that. So not only is it good for reactivation, you're training your Salesforce to refer people in to your practice. And so I think that's where I would start. And you don't have to, like, some people get nervous about video. It's super easy now. You don't have to be Brad Pitt, right? We're not asking you to be an A-list celebrity. You don't even have to be good looking. You can just get on video and be a trusted doctor, and people will watch that. And you just have to get over yourself a little bit and know that the first few videos you shoot aren't going to be great. But when you do it consistently, shoot 4 a month, 5 a month, whatever it is, the more the merrier, but at least 4 a month, maybe once a week, right? Is why I do that. You'll get better at it, and you'll be very trusted in the community.
Yeah, love so many things that you said there, Kevin. I know we have like parallel worlds. The one of my favorite things that started to happen is when I started putting out content, and I know this has happened for other owners, is you put out that piece on, you know, migraines or headaches or whatever it might be, and then somebody comes in and says, "How did you know that I was experiencing that?" And they don't comprehend that you just sent that to 10,000 people
Ah,
or 1,000 people. That is one of my favorite things ever, but they just perceive that you sent this uniquely for them.
yep.
Uh, that's happened to you quite a few times.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's funny. And then I guess the other thing is don't get your feelings hurt if someone unsubscribes from your email list. I don't even look, but some people is like, oh, it bothers me that people unsubscribe. It's like, why? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I hear a lot of owners talking about that, and that especially 10 years ago, that was a really big deal. The practice would get their feelings hurt when they sent out an email, but they would ignore the 20 people coming back in for additional care and focus on the two unsubscribes. So lots of different ways that we can distribute. You mentioned email, text. I completely agree with you that it's going to be a simple message. Very tough to deliver a 5 minute, 4 minute, 5 minute video via text and have somebody watch that, but you can say, "How are you doing? Any
Mhm.
aches and pains recently, or whatever for reactivation there." Any other channels that you're encouraging
Yep.
owners to use, and once they create that content, how to get more
Yep.
mileage out of that?
Yeah, I'll tell you one more, as it relates to reactivation. So I'm gonna get rid of that. Is the fact that you can actually. What's cool is let's just take Facebook and Instagram ads. You could upload your email list into Facebook, right? And let's say you have an email list of 3,000 people, and 2,000 of those people have that email address affiliated with a Facebook account. You now have an audience of 2,000 people that have been in your practice, and you could target them, right? So you could create content for those folks. And actually, even if you have MailChimp, Facebook connects your MailChimp right to it, and you just upload it right into Facebook. And so we spend like $500 to $600 a month on just the videos we shoot, retargeting that email list. Um, and so again, we're getting content, video educational content in front of our patient base. So it's another way of doing that. And you could take it a step further. You could take that email list, you could do like a 1 or 2% lookalike audience and create a patient like for cold leads or new patient marketing as well. So you can kind of go down that path also. It's something that we do.
Nice. The other thing that I wanted to validate is we do a very similar process that you just talked about. And by the way, if you're listening to this as a practice owner, the what you just shared, Kevin, is gold, because we just took it was a knee workshop that we ran,
Mhm.
pulled the transcription from YouTube. I went to Claude. So we used slightly different tools, but in the end, it was the same. And I asked it to write oddly hooks
Yeah.
for our meta advertising, and then landing page copy, and then a series of 3 emails for people that signed up for that. And it was all done, within seconds, where 10 years ago we were having to pay Dan Kennedy or
Oh,
Russell Brunson or somebody else to help us figure this out. But yeah, absolutely amazing what can happen with the tools and how we can get that out there. Awesome. So a couple other questions here before we wrap up. Are there any other, in addition to marketing, are there any other trends that you're seeing that as practice owners we should be aware of? Because it seems like the change has really accelerated within private practice over the last 5 years. Is there anything new and upcoming that's on your radar that you're paying attention to?
Yeah, I think as private practice, a couple things. I do think I'm seeing a lot more in-network providers, and we kind of briefly talked about it earlier, escape that commoditization trap with add-on services that are actually good add-on services. And I like that. And I actually, before this interview, I was interviewing someone for my podcast, and she just specializes in really the revenue cycle, all the way from patient registration all the way to sending out statements to the patient, like how do you collect and managing all this insurance. And she does a good job of that and building systems around someone to do it. And then we talked about that a little bit. It's like there's a lot of clinics out there, and a lot of you met in our mastermind, they are in-network providers, but they're doing add-on services of certain types, and they're doing really well with that. They're building good systems on that. And so I think that's something that chiropractors and physical therapists need to start considering, is that there's some really good tools out there that's going to get the patient better and faster and for longer, and the insurance isn't covering it, but the patient is willing to pay for that. So I think that's a really good trend that I'm seeing.
Yeah, nice. Do you want to mention any of them, like what you see working? I'm happy to talk about
Yeah.
it here.
Well, I know Shockwave's great and is doing really good. Laser, I think, it's been around for quite a long time. Dry needling is one for sure. That there's obviously a lot of others, but those are, I think, the three that I'm seeing a lot right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, there's some motion analysis that
Yep.
you see rolling out.
Yep.
We implemented that into our clinics. That's working out, but yeah, completely validate everything that you're
Or the
saying.
other one is clinic gym hybrid type stuff, where you got a clinic and you got a gym, and so now you transition that person from rehab to fitness, and the fitness is obviously cash.
Yeah.
And I think that's another one. I actually just interviewed a guy who's doing that, but he's using tonals to on the fitness side of it, and that's pretty
Nice.
interesting. So yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of cool stuff out there.
that's great. Um, I know you're a huge Dan Sullivan fan. Um,
Yeah.
Most influential book that you've ever read in your practice and business career,
Oh, from Dan Sullivan or just in general?
in general. Sorry to mess you up with the,
No.
the Dan Sullivan head thing, but yeah, it could be any book
Yeah.
you've ever read.
I'll say Epic Content Marketing by Joe Polizzi, because I just feel like content marketing really is what helped me out. And that book did a good job of for at the time. Again, now that book's probably, they did a revisiting of it for sure, but a really good book. It just really helped me understand the power of content marketing and have confidence in it, because it's not a quick fix to a business. It's a it really is the long play, and it's been cool because I've used content marketing twice successfully. One was taking my practice that was already doing well and layering it on to make it even better. But then I did it to where I actually kind of, in a meta way, I was using content to build a content marketing business, and I didn't monetize it for 2 years. Like, I just started a podcast in 2017. I had a Facebook group, and I was just providing free information to chiropractors around marketing. And I didn't do anything with it for 2 years. Just kept on weekly episode after weekly episode after weekly episode, and then let the audience tell me what they needed. And then I built a business and offerings around that. And so I've used it twice in my life to build or enhance businesses. And so I know it works. And that book was really the beginning of that for me. So I'll use that book.
That's great. Great recommendation there. Epic Content Marketing. Um, Love that. We'll put that in the show notes for everybody. Just
There
out
you
of
go.
curiosity, when and how did you stumble upon that book? And what were you
Yeah,
struggling with?
yeah, absolutely. So I joined Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan in 2013. I think it was late 2014. I got a letter from Strategic Coach about Joe Polish and his Genius Network. I didn't know anything of Joe Polish. I didn't join Genius Network, but I looked up Joe Polish, and he had the podcast with Dean Jackson, I Love Marketing. And so started diving into that. And then I remember coming across, because I was just really looking into marketing thing. And then I saw a thing like top 10 podcasts on marketing. And there was one that Joe Polizzi and Robert Rose did. and I think it was This Old Marketing was the podcast. And I just devoured that. So that's how I heard of them and started going to their master classes and their conferences and that book. And that's just how I, 2014, 2015, 2016, learning it to apply it to my practice. And then when it worked, it's like, oh, some evidence-based chiropractors could utilize this information. And that's when the podcast started and the whole company started from there.
Love that. Awesome. Kevin, for people that are listening to the podcast right now, they want to learn more about you and your groups and what you're up to. What's the best way you can tell them about your podcast, anything at all? How can they connect
Yeah.
with you? How can they find
Our website is modernchiropracticmarketing.com. And if you're a chiropractor, right now we really work with chiropractors specifically, and you're interested in that, you can check us out there. Our podcast is Modern Chiropractic Mastery. It used to be called Modern Chiropractic Marketing, but we do a lot more than just that on there now.
you? Sorry about that.
What's that?
Sorry about that because I said modern chiropractic marketing earlier, not
Oh,
Matt.
no, that's the name of the company. So it is confusing. The
Okay,
company is Modern Chiropractic Marketing, and the mastermind is all that. Only the podcast is rebranded to Modern Chiropractic Mastery
got it.
because we have a lot of guests on different things. So the company, you were right. MCM is Modern Chiropractic Marketing. So
Cool. So they can go there. They can easily find your podcast, and you gave the
mhm.
URLs as well. Um, Love it. Any other words of wisdom, words of encouragement for practices as they're
Yeah.
struggling through this? Where do I start? How do I navigate
Yeah,
inflation, reimbursements, everything else? And yeah,
yeah, for
you want
sure. Be the buffalo. It's an old Native American proverb where, the cattle, when the storm comes, the cattle try to run away from it only to be in that storm longer. Whereas the buffalo go right into the storm, run through it, take it on, head on, and end up on the other side of it a lot quicker and better for it. So take it on, be the buffalo. If you don't know how to figure it out, find someone like yourself to help them figure it out.
love it. Thanks, Kevin. It's great.
Absolutely.